Well, leaders of the Brics bloc of emerging economies are meeting in Rio de Janeiro. Top of the agenda are Donald Trump's trade tariffs and the risks to the world economy. The Brics nations include just over half the world's population and 40% of global economic output. While the summit is aiming for unity, some of the biggest players have stayed away.
Rio is gearing up with a massive security operation. With tensions rising over trade, currency control and geopolitical alignments, the Brics bloc of emerging economies meeting here is under pressure to show that it's more than just a talking shop. Brics stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, starting off as a designation by analysts but which then became a formal club. Since last year, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran and the United Arab Emirates also joined the group, so-called Big Brics or Brics Plus. High on the agenda this year, talks on expanding the Brics Pay platform to ease trade in their respective national currencies, a direct step towards reducing reliance on the US dollar. Though that stops short of proposals of a common currency between members. Also expected, discussions on security cooperation and a framework on AI governance. But not everyone is showing up in person, unlike last year. Russia's President Putin is subject to an international arrest warrant, while China's Xi Jinping is skipping the summit, sending his premier instead. Nevertheless, the Foreign Ministry says it still backs Brics. We highly value and will actively participate in Brics cooperation. We're willing to work with all parties, uphold the spirit of openness and win-win cooperation, stay true to the aspiration of unity, support Brazil in hosting a successful summit, and promote the development of big Brics cooperation. The optics raise real questions about unity, just as Brazil tries to steer Brics towards what it calls inclusive, sustainable leadership of the global south.
Well, as we saw in the report, there are two notable faces not in attendance at the Brics gathering in Brazil this year: Russian President Vladimir Putin and China's leader Xi Jinping. Well, a little earlier, I asked Oliver de la Costa Stunkel, a professor of international relations at the Getulio Vargas Foundation in Brazil, what he made of the absences.
So this is actually a first because Xi Jinping has been essential for the Brics grouping since he came to power more than a decade ago and has been always there and is clearly the most important actor. It's comparable perhaps to the United States and the G7. So Xi Jinping not showing up is clearly reduces the attractiveness of the summit in Rio. The Chinese government has said that that's because Xi Jinping was in Rio in November last year for the G20. And then he met Lula again in Beijing in May. So there wasn't really enough to talk about to justify making yet another trip. And it's quite a trip. It's 24 hours by plane. So a lot of the Chinese scholars in Latin America can understand that for Xi, perhaps it wasn't important enough. Putin couldn't go because he didn't want to take the risk of being detained because of the arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court. So that clearly changes a bit the nature of the summit, which was quite glamorous in the past. Now, because of the expansion, the dynamics have changed a bit. Egypt's president is also not present. Iran's president is also not present. Right. So that has led to a bit of a downgrade of the summit, I would say.
Now, I want to take you up on this expansion issue. Now, is that making it much more difficult then for the country, say, to reach agreement, to reach consensus on different issues now that we're seeing these new countries come in to the group? Absolutely.
The grouping has become more representative because you have more countries from around the world joining, but finding consensus has become so much more difficult. Just a few months ago, the Brics were for the first time unable to publish a communique when the foreign ministers met because there was disagreement among the African member states about which country should be cited in the paragraph that recommends UN Security Council reform, because traditionally it has been only South Africa. But now, since Ethiopia and Egypt have joined, they too would like to be considered as candidate. So things have slowed down quite a bit in that regard, and I think that makes BRICS less agile.
Great to have your analysis there. Oliver Della Costa Stunkel, a professor of international relations, joining us tonight from Sao Paulo.